here with Carina Alankar, who is the fellow co-priestess of the Aphrodite Experience Retreat for Men in Italy. And we thought we would just come on here and have a discussion, talk about the intentions of this experience, talk about the sex priestessing work that we will be doing, the ritual work, why we are inviting men into this container, the importance of that, and have a really candid conversation about how this has unfolded, because it's pretty it's pretty magical and beautiful, and it's like important deep work that we're both passionate about, and I think that people can come to reading about this or feeling this and maybe not, having more questions arising. And so we thought we would just drop in around a conversation. Yeah, Carina?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
good to be here to talk about this process, this journey.
Yeah. Well, and so we were just having this really beautiful conversation before we pressed record about love and about intimacy and what it is, I think, for men to be in relationship with powerful, embodied, sacred sexual beings who are in touch with their power, and the vast spectrum of their emotion and the vast spectrum of their passion. It really does initiate men into a higher level of their expression. Would you say, Carina?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think what I notice is whether it's in my personal life or in professional relationships with clients, the way that I show up when I, have the courage and vulnerability simultaneously to be like in my full expression and direct expression of desire, right? So my really embodying and letting them know what I need,
Well, and it's it's trusting your divine feminine, which does sometimes feel like too much or too wild or too emotional. But it's these things that men actually want from us, but yet
right,
sometimes when they
exactly.
get it, it's then how do they hold space for it? How do they receive it and not run away from it or feel scared? Because I think that this is kind of the testing ground that distinguishes and helps a man become a king, is when he can hold himself and realize it's not about him, but this is about the wild feminine. She is nature. She is sometimes volcanic eruptions, and sometimes she is that calm, placid pool. But you cannot have one aspect of the spectrum without welcoming and appreciating the other. And that's part of, I think, what it is for a man to come into this space of being a king, but he needs to have that initiation from wild, sacred women who are connected and tapped in and don't suppress or shame or hide their own vast power, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So maybe,
yeah.
Go.
I feel like it's sometimes men are wanting to rise into that, right? To their power, to feeling a certain level of mastery for themselves. And and they have to face that challenge, right? They have to feel that edge and really be challenged from something external that they can then stretch themselves and have their own vulnerabilities come up and be able to face them, and still stay in connection and still stay in intimacy and honesty, right? And that dance is makes both rise and also simultaneously ground more, right, into the embodiment of the present and the truth, what's true.
I mean, how does it make you feel when a man expresses interest in learning about, you know, practices and rituals and ceremonies of honoring the goddess, or, you know, neo-tantric practices, or wanting to expand his awareness and his skill in these ways? Like, how does that make you feel as a woman who is embodied, empowered, embraces her sacred sexuality? Like, you're a queen in my realm, right? In my pantheon of friends. And so, you know, as a high value, high caliber woman who is experienced in tantra, who's experienced in priestess work, who like has a higher standard for people in her life, how does it make you feel when a man, you're not having to drag him to the well per se, you're not having to, like, he is actively seeking out resources, trainings, and wanting to learn and absorb how to best support the goddess in being the fullness of herself? How does that make you feel as a woman?
There's so much relief. There's like a huge, deep relief in my system of like, oh my God, they're on the same page. That I'm not in opposition to them. I'm not having to prove or convince or persuade. It's just like they are naturally motivated into like service, support, provision, and like even if you like, you know, those are like divine masculine buzzwords, right? But like the way that I see that is like um men being like, no, I will do this for you. I will take care of this. You
Mm,
know, let me handle it. Like let me figure it out. I got you, right? And they're like, it gives them such pleasure to give me that like relief, you know. And I mean beyond relief, like to uh make sure that I have what I need, you know, and like that I'm feeling supported, nurtured, abundant. I'm not having to stress. Like they're like, oh my God, I want you to just, you know, it's like a natural, spontaneous thing that like sprouts within them, versus, you know, the trope in our culture nowadays is often like, oh, women are like disappointed in men, right?
mm,
I'm not feeling met. Men are not like showing up. Oh, they're, you know, they don't care enough. They're, I don't know, they're distracted. They're
mm.
all over the place, right? I don't know. Yeah, and it's like wow, when someone has that like attention and focus
Mhm.
and
Presence.
um,
Presence.
presence, the service, the desire to be in service,
Mhm.
right? And it's not a burden. You don't feel like, oh, I'm burdening him, you know?
Ah, you're bringing up, so I wanna ask you another question about, like, who are the kind of men who come to something like this. Um, but it's bringing up, like, these, like, 4 pillars of the masculine. So, like, if we look at the Shiva Lingam, you know,
Mhm.
and so the masculine is the upward pointing energy, and it's like purpose, presence, and provision. You know, like
Mhm.
he's,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's not just financial provision. It's like the provision of like, honey, I got this. Like, you
Right.
know, you know. And for the feminine, it's different. Like we operate on different principles, but it's when a man is bringing his presence to like being with you, to like listening to the feminine, like what does she need from me? She needs my presence. That is part of the masculine pillar, you know. And
Mhm.
so, who would you say are like
Yeah, and we need that so
that
much more than
are,
like the performance.
oh, the shadow, the performance? I love that. Hmm. Hmm. Mm. Oh.
Yeah, because like, you know, like even if you think about it in terms of a lover, right? So often men will think, oh, I need to perform to please her, right? But actually, um, when I feel the most fulfilled by a lover, it's when he's so present. He's like listening to me so like nuanced and precise that he's judging, right? And he's finding out before I even have to articulate directly, what I'm responding to, right? And what I'm not responding to. And even if he has to check in, it's like, wow, it's like a totally different dance than, oh, I'm trying to perform, I'm trying to make it happen and like make her feel things. So it's more about that presence and attention than the performance.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, there's who are the kind of men who are are coming to this or will be attracted to this experience? Like, what are they looking to expand into as men, as lovers, as partners? Um, yeah, what would you say about that?
I think it would be men who are tired of feeling like their desire or their yearning for intimacy and for uh, high-end experiences with the feminine. It's like something to be ashamed of, or if they haven't
Mm,
reached the level that they wanted, they feel some kind of shame. Um, I think men who also see how there's something beyond just the personal, and that there's like a transcendental experience that is available to them that's beyond just like, oh, I want to be better in bed, or I want to attract these beautiful women. It's like knowing that, oh, these difficulties that I face in relationship point to like a bigger journey for myself, as a man, and coming into my power and mastery of this life, this chance for embodiment here. And so whether they're like a full-on spiritual seeker, trying to have full tantric experience, they don't necessarily have to be that, but to kind of understand that, wow, this is like deeper, you know, um, there's a lot that I can learn about from this.
hmm hmm
Yeah, that transcends.
Would you also say too, it's like men that are really wanting to become masters of understanding polarity, like the ancient frameworks really of polarity, so that they can dance the dance better, the energetic dance with the feminine? Because I think,
Mhm.
it's like, in order to be in a relationship with the feminine and with women, it's like you have to understand their language, or in terms of like how they operate. We are so different. We are so different. That's what brings us attracted to each other. But if we don't understand that very basic framework, a lot of times I think things get confusing, and we're like, why is this thing happening again and again? It's like you haven't understood or even showed interest in learning the language, right?
Mm.
And so I think it's like coming to this, you're gonna have an experience of going deep into the framework of polarity at like, you know, a logical way, but also seeing how that moves in the space, in the retreat, with all of these amazing practitioners of this kind of work, so that you can, be like, whoo, okay, I see how that interplay is being created without having necessarily the triggers that can arise when we're in a romantic partnership with somebody, right?
Right. Mhm.
That's what I love about working with coaches and working with people, especially in this regard, is that you get an opportunity to see where your blind spots are without having the nervous system fucking flip its lid, because you're like, oh my God, this is also the person that I'm romantically involved with. And all of my childhood wounds are getting pushed right now, and all this shit's coming up. It's like, okay, this person is my, sacred ally, and they're here to support me in holding space for that stuff so it can be felt and released, versus my partner who sometimes can't always hold me in that because they're also triggered, or, would you say?
Right. Yeah, it's like a training, right? It's a sacred training ground to be put in these situations where you can work these things out and have the mirror reflect back to you, like you said, the blind spots, and to be lovingly like held and supported and witnessed is so alchemical.
And having that space too, I would say that this is for men who are ready to have space held for them by the feminine to really open and really like be held. So we were just talking about how there's space for men to also really be held by the feminine, and explore the nuances of this polarity dance of how to create deeper intimacy, deeper safety within their relationship with the feminine. And you brought up this really great point in one of our previous conversations around that the women that are going to be there at this experience, they've been through our training, our temple arts training, as well as having come from a lot of background experience and education and knowledge in tantra, neo tantra, sacred sexuality, somatic embodiment. So they're a resource, and they're also able to support the invitation to even deeper spaces of opening. And like, maybe you can share too a little bit about that, like in your own experience, and the amazing women that will be there to hold your men in this way.
Yeah, I think that's a really good highlight about this particular retreat experience in comparison to some of the other ones out there in this space of temple art, sacred sexuality, is that we are what we're inviting men to come in as initiates here. The women have already been trained, right? And so it's not like I mean, first of all, this is a very intimate experience. Like it's a small group, right? So everyone will get a lot of attention, right? And space to express and be seen and be in connection and receive, right? And then the women, because they've already been through this training, and this is like a culmination for them in this in their certification. And so it's a really unique opportunity to get that level of priestess. To get that level of priestesses, to be an initiate in devotion in a space with these priestesses that are prepared, right? And they're not kind of stumbling into it on the same footing, you know, being initiated. It's going to be an initiation for them into their mastery, right? Into their leadership and guidance, but also for them to receive from the masculine, right? Because the masculine seekers and initiates are also there to offer their service and devotion to the women. And so it's like a really beautiful opportunity for both sides. Yeah.
And maybe we can talk a bit about the arc of the experience, and without revealing too much of the mystery, but like speaking to that arc, and something that's coming through too as well is that, like, this is also really going into the artistry of romance and the artistry of love and intimacy, and these pieces that I think have been left out of our education around sexuality, right? And so I think that for a lot of men that are like they they want to learn, they want to learn how to support the feminine to open in pleasure in her heart, and it's not in the ways that a lot of men know, right? Because they've grown up on a steady diet of porn, um, and resources that are really like not based on truth. I mean, most porn is shows two people that don't even have any kind of emotional connection, so
Mm,
there's a disconnect there, right? And so I think that part of this retreat is really to reconnect those pieces of like supporting your feminine lover, supporting your partner, supporting your lovers to open their hearts so that their sex can open in big
mm,
ways, and also like practices of how to support the feminine in her nervous system. So maybe we can talk a bit about the arc, right, of through the archetypes and some of the ways that we'll be weaving in ceremony. I mean, I'm excited for this arc of experience. It's like a hero's quest, right, for the men that will be there.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I would love for you to tease that out.
Well, I mean, so we had a beautiful call with one of the men that was coming, and I'm gonna just be frank here. Like we had this beautiful call where he brought his questions to me around like, well, how sexual are we getting with these women? And, like, do I get to have sex with these women? And like, it, we hold space for the questions, right? Without shame or judgment, but these were like
Right.
real questions. And so, um, the way that I answered that question was really like this. And it was, we go through each of the days, we kind of go through a different archetype. And these archetypes illuminate and open up different facets of our eros, of our sexual expression, of our intimacy blueprint. And so we start with, the inner child, which is around like erotic innocence, building trust, creating communication, and creating a very beautiful consensual space, right? That is the foundation for any deep intimacy, any deep intimacy. Right? Um, And then I shared with him like then we go into the inner lover, the warrior, the mystic, and the king, God's self. And because everything still rests on that level of consent, the depth to which the practices go really do depend on the practitioner that day that you are partnered with, and your own edges that you're there to meet, because people think in their mind like, oh, I have this idea of how I'm going to be, and then you might be feeling like abandonment wounds like have come up when your first lover cheated on you, or like we can never really know until we're in the moment. And so I was trying to explain that to him, that we are all skilled in somatic practices, in touch practices, and it's going to require a deep listening in the moment on that particular day, right? Depending on those two people and that practitioner that you're partnered with. So part of this journey is that you do get an opportunity to go into different practices with each of the different practitioners, which will give you a breadth of the feminine in her different expressions. And these practitioners, they come from a variety of backgrounds. They come from poly orientations or monogamous partnered practitioners. They come from um, queer or more cis het orientations. Like, and that is the beauty, because you really get to taste the whole buffet of these different flavors of the feminine in different forms, which will help one clarify and understand your own unique erotic blueprint and expression, right?
I love that so much. Yeah, and I also think it's like uh, pulling back from this really rigid, limited idea of what an exchange of sexual energy can be, right? Like that, an interaction that involves erotic energy is like, oh, my mind is already going to like sexual intercourse or like some degree of genital friction. And there's like a world, like a whole universe of other things that can be an expression of that energy, right? And that can be a dance between two people or a group, even, right? To experience that energy through like movement, ritual, different kinds of embodiment practice, like just sensual touch, like so much more. Even like vocalizing or sharing in just sensory uh, experience can be so heightening, and people kind of totally underestimate what how much they can experience in bodies because we have such a narrow view of what
Well,
constitutes
and you're
growth, you know?
well, and most people haven't ever experienced the depths of eros and passion, like true eros and passion, because all of
Mhm.
those building blocks to get there have been fucking skipped, right? And just trying to skip going straight into penetration, straight into entering. When I mean, I think about, some of the rituals that we're going to be doing around acceptance, trust building, even like a lot of men still have a lot of work to do, like conscious work around letting the feminine hold him, letting him be accepted, doing, for example, a soft cock ceremony where your cock is held and where you accept your soft cock in that moment, and you can also have it witnessed and accepted by a woman. Like, most men are like, what? No, this is like fundamental to allowing your heart and sex to open, which then creates more powerful experience of pleasure, desire, and romance and sex. Most men have just touched, sex through their cock alone and their heart hasn't been involved, right? Or the other way around. But it's like when you can have, the spirit, the emotion, and the physical all open and connected, that's where the transcendental heroes, gamos, like profound sex as ascension, as descension, as spiritual evolution comes online. Some of the rituals we'll be doing are going to be around tapping into your own desire and creating a ritual based on that, right? Through an erotic ritual, which is a big part of this work that we do. So, for example, for one man, it might be maybe he's been in monogamous long-term relationships his entire life and he's never been embraced by a lot of women at the same time. He might, he'll might want to construct that as his ritual, right? And we're there to help. Another man might have felt undesirable his whole life, and want to be embraced by a woman in devotion, receive her obsession, her longing. Another man might have always been with timid lovers, or his partner is timid in bed, and maybe he wants to feel the ferocity of feminine passion, and so they construct a ritual where he gets to receive that through like a dance, or so there's a way of like tapping into these pieces where the men coming in or who are attracted to this, it doesn't matter actually if you're partnered or single, you're going to get some fucking profound codes that unlock the next levels of your masculinity. Because working with a sex priestess is one thing. Working with a fucking coven of sex priestesses is going to just, like, your expansion is going to be imminent, right? And you're going to be like, oh, this is what it is to be in my masculine power. This is what it is to feel my eros. This is what it is to feel like the fucking sexiest man on the planet. And that's the power of what it is when you say yes to the goddess. When you say yes to the goddess, she's like, okay, welcome. Come into the mystery, my love. And you know, and it's also trusting a woman, right? It's not having and placing those expectations on her. Just as a man does not like having expectations placed on him, the feminine doesn't like having those expectations. Oh, I owe you sex. I owe you my pussy. No, 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 no. This comes through mutual curiosity, mutual openness, mutual trust building, you know, and this is, I think, one of the key codes that a man will get from coming to this retreat, and how to use tantric practices to connect to a woman's spirit, to connect to her heart, her breasts, her yoni, you know, her sacral, her spirit, her essence, and really hold space for the flowering of those, all of those facets to unfold, so that her pussy opens and blossoms like a flower. You know, we're going to be doing some practices where men will get to learn about the things that actually support a woman's pussy to open, the cervical orgasms to open, which are nothing they'll find in a porn video ever, ever.
No, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, right?
Yeah, no, I think sometimes people think, oh, it's a sex positive space, so they're thinking about these like really wild. It goes to into wild fantasies, right? Like, oh, I want to experience like crazy orgy, like different positions and
Yeah.
scenario scenes, blah blah blah. And then when you go into a container like this, all of that like dissolves. It just gets annihilated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wonderful to contemplate that, and but as a way of noticing, like the desire that like bubbles, the desires that bubble up, and
Yeah.
that exist, right? But that actually, like, what a lot of people get are it's just much more profound. It's about being in like really seen in your like naked, and like even like people that have a lot of body shame, right? Like sometimes we take for granted the way that body shame keeps us suppressed and keeps us from fully expressing
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes.
And it's like a really, it seems like something like, oh, I should be over this, or I should be able to kind of, get past that and just do what I want to do anyway. But it's like being witnessed naked and like receiving like witness and praise of your naked body or your like naked desires and yearnings,
Mm-hmm.
that in and of itself is
Yeah.
huge.
Huge.
It's
It's
huge
it's
and
huge.
unlocks so much. Yeah, and unlocks, but like that can unlock full body. I've seen people have full body orgasms just from being witnessed in that way.
Uh,
Like nobody touched them.
yeah.
They weren't
Yeah.
they weren't being touched. And they started like, experiencing that level of like alchemical reaction because they've never received that before.
Well, and that's the thing is like when you come into the container with no expectation, you get everything. And when you come into it with expectation, like, eh, because again, our pornified culture, it, I mean, the average porn video, there's no foreplay, there's no build up, there's no conversation. Even it's just like, oh, boom, now I'm fucking this chick, and now she's coming in 10 minutes. It's like that is the farthest thing from the truth. And actually, that's not fun anyways. Like, who's that fun for? Like, it's tapping into the prolonged depth and opening. And I had a really beautiful conversation with one of the men that came to our in-person experiences here in Vancouver, and he shared that he came into the experience like with all of these expectations that like, oh, I'm gonna get laid, I'm gonna have sex. And actually, what happened was the total opposite, but yet the container still got wild. It still actually held space for those like crazy orgy experiences, which, again, it could happen in Italy, but we as sex priestesses know that you never like expect that, because you have to hold space for the mystery. You have to hold space for what is true in the moment to emerge. And
Mm-hmm.
actually, it's like that is where the intimacy unfolds from, right?
Totally.
But this man was like, that was the lesson for me, is like he was met hard with his expectation of like, that's the thing is that true deep intimacy cannot be bought or sold. And that is what I think the men that are coming to this retreat, they are wanting to understand and dance with those codes of liberation. Because you like, yes, you're paying to come to Italy to learn from us,
Oh, I just got goosebumps. Like it was
but you're not paying
like,
to have
like
sex with us. You're not paying. We
getting,
don't
yeah,
owe you. We don't owe you
yeah.
that, because
Mm,
true depth and intimacy does not come from expectation. True love does
mm,
not come from expectation. It comes from curiosity, openness, communication, willingness, consent.
mm.
Um, and those are some hard pills to swallow, but it's the hero's quest for the man who's ready to ascend into his kingdom, who's ready to be the most amazing lover that he knows himself to be or wants to know himself to be, to have actual skills in how to open your woman's body like an instrument and play her songs of pleasure. We will be getting into that. Um, how to be in your masculine power and be seen in that, right? Too, which is another beautiful thing that we're going to do through ritual and practices and workshops. I mean, we have a ton of workshops, a ton of rituals, a ton of skill based practice, but also a lot of beautiful experiences that are going to be like, like their hearts are just going to blast open with like beauty of like, oh, like I just get these visions of like us women like dancing around them and like just letting them bask in the perfume of the liberated, open, wild, sensual feminine, you know? And that is the kind of space that these men can hold as well, right? In their presence, in their true grounded presence, which is a big piece of this work. So I feel like this is like a good start, for the men that are listening that are like, okay, what next? So like, this is where you then put your application in, and then we'll schedule a consult call and feel into if this is the right experience for you, because there are a limited amount of spots and we want to ensure that it's the right fit. Um,
Mhm.
and I'll say like that again, this experience doesn't preclude that you have to have a six pack or that you have to have a certain length of cock or like any of these like weird things that men might be like, oh, I have a dad bod or what. Like, it's about the intention. It's about why are you wanting to come? Are you wanting to become a better lover for your wife? Are you wanting to finally open your heart in love and manifest your soulmate? Are you wanting to explore polyamory maybe? Like what are the things that you're wanting to expand and grow in? Any final thoughts, Karina? Any pieces
No,
of
I think that's perfect. I would love I would love for to send us some questions, and see what was sparked, in this dialogue that we had. Like, can they see themselves? Can you see yourselves, in this beautiful like retreat center in Italy, and like um delighting
delighting, delighting.
all this universe that we're going to co-create together with so much um mystery and, yeah, magical ceremony, and delve into these places that are, yeah, really tender and also have the potential for really ecstatic experiences, but they're coming from a place of truth, right? We're coming from a place of creating something that's authentic and not performative and you
Mm.
know.
I feel like this too is like, this is like for the men that maybe have been like hitting their heads against a brick wall, like trying to understand women, trying to understand the feminine, trying to understand love and like sacred sexuality and like these things, right? And again, it just takes willingness and choice. The choice to come and say yes because you will be held, right? Like that is one of the most powerful choices that will affect your career, your purpose, how much money you make. It does, right? Because when we do this conscious work, and I've spent years doing conscious work around like healing my relationship to the masculine, tens of thousands of dollars, working with coaches, taking massive action, healing the relationship to my dad, like working with men and people to support me and acknowledging that like, oh, I have some wounds here I need to work on, and it's helped open the door so that I can love and I can be in the
Mm.
mystery of what it is to dance with the masculine, right? And that's what I would say for the men out there. That's like, it doesn't have to be an elusive mystery anymore. You know,
Mm.
it doesn't have to be more years of rejection from your wife or living in a sexist relationship or not understanding why you can't attract a partner that you can open with, or why women, don't want to sleep with you. Like there's there the mystery can be solved in this experience in this retreat, and that's what we're here to do, is hold you in that. So thank you for watching. Thank you, Carina, for just coming on and delving deep into the mystery with me. And we're so excited. So excited. And it's like, oh, it's juicy and profound and deep work.
Yeah, honor, such an honor. Thanks for listening.